So you're in the Senate. You are on the Senate Energy and Natural Resource Committee. You get to see all kinds of interesting things coming through here as it relates to public land and conservation and funding and how that gets prioritized.
Yeah.
Is that an eye-opener?
It's an eye-opener because I think some people take positions that are not grounded in the kind of everyday experience that you or many of my constituents have in Western public lands in particular. When things go sideways, it's usually because people are not grounded in reality, but they are looking at something from a completely abstract point of view.
Yeah.
And that's when we get these ideas like selling off our public lands.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've seen so much of that lately. It started entering the election cycle last summer.
Right.
And when you talk about the abstract, you hear people say, well, these are just wastelands other than military installations. They really have no use or purpose.
Yeah.
And when I hear that, and then I start reading Wall Street Journal articles that are kind of echoing this, I'm like, wait a second, this is completely different than some of the old, if you want to call it, marketing schemes.
And that's what it is, right? Because this idea comes up time and again. We have killed this multiple times. It came up when I was in the House of Representatives over 10 years ago, and it was real. And as soon as it became visceral for people across the political spectrum put it down. Said, we're not having this. These places, in my view, they're the anvil that the American experience was forged on. I mean, if you have a personal relationship with these places, and one of the things that really bugs me is when people say, well, I love our national parks, but we should get rid of those BLM lands. And it's like, those BLM lands are personally important to me. They are the places I took my kids in a backpack when they couldn't even walk yet. They're the places I've harvested, like where my son took his first elk. I mean, those BLM lands matter.
Yeah, and when you hear that in the abstract, it causes me concern because I come here more often than I'd like. This is your office and a couple others are like my sanctuaries. But you quickly realize that when issues are being prioritized back here, there aren't too many who put that connection, or have that connection that puts that up their priority list like you and a couple others do. And it becomes an abstract concept for them. And so if it can become a bargaining chip, or it can be...
Or a way to pay for something.
Right. Yeah, and so yesterday, we hear that in the budget reconciliation process, there's supposed efforts that, hey, we're going to use that as a mechanism to maybe sell some public lands. And for a lot of my audience, they're like, well, how does that work? It takes 60 votes in the Senate, and it's like, no, there's procedure, there's process that people can use that. So,
and budget reconciliation for our listeners only takes a majority. So you can do things under budget reconciliation with 51 votes that you cannot normally do as a matter of law in the Senate.
Right, and that's a great explanation because a lot of people will tell me, Randy, you're just so wound up over this. You can't see the forest for the trees. It's going to take 60 votes. Well, here's a perfect example. And 2 weeks ago, I started getting some emails and calls from folks back here of, hey, Randy, we're being asked to figure out what hurdles would be there if we tried to sell some Forest Service land. Because it sounds like there's a big amount of it that they might want to test in the budget reconciliation. I'm like, that's crazy. They aren't that bold. Well, yesterday we find out, and you made a statement on that. I'm thankful that my senator from Montana, Senator Daines, made a pretty strong statement on that. For people out there who don't live and breathe this, is it are we at this point where this is the closest we've come to a possibility of this happening?
I think we're closer now than we were, back when I was in the House of Representatives and we had this same fire drill, well over a decade ago.
Yep.
And it is, the antidote to this is to have people across the political spectrum, certainly in both parties, who will stand up to this. Like, no matter who raises the issue, public lands are just one of those issues that make it worth me serving here. And I'm happy to do my part, but we need that from all sides.
Yeah.
That's the key. As long as we can keep conservation and public lands bipartisan, we will be able to stop this kind of craziness.
Yeah, because it seems like every time there's if you want to call it a crisis, or there's an event in the bigger landscape of American society, there are certain groups and certain people who want to say, well, how can we attach some of our ideological goals of ridding the American public of their lands to that crisis?
Yeah.
And in today's environment, we're hearing about, well, we're going to do it so we can reduce the deficit or balance the budget. Or even the one that seems to have more strength right now is lower the cost of housing.
Yeah.
And I use where I live in Bozeman, Montana. The average house sells for $900,000. And we have tons of private land yet
all
to be
around
developed.
Bozeman, right?
And you could go
I've been to Bozeman. It's like you can find public lands fast. You can get on the road and get to them, but they're not what is driving up the cost of housing in Bozeman.
Not at all.
And you see it, the cost of housing in states without public lands is also being driven up simultaneously.
Yes.
So we need to figure out how to build more houses.
Right.
And we have laws that facilitate, when you have an isolated section of land that is not providing access, it's not providing the services that most of our public lands provide, there is a mechanism to divest of that. And we're working on a section of land outside of Carlsbad, New Mexico right now that is a BLM land that wasn't being used by the public that is going to facilitate housing. That's not what we're talking about. Like, we have mechanisms to do that. This debate is not about housing.
Right. And we've had FLTFA, the Federal Land
Transaction
Facilitation Act.
I wrote the last version of that.
Okay, yeah. And so it is to identify those kind of parcels.
Exactly.
It's got criteria, it's got a mechanism for what happens with the money. But it's for better land management.
That's right.
It's not under this false pretense of, well, this is going to lower the cost of housing. So we see this happening right now, and every day it's like some new weed is sprouting out of the soil. Someone's fertilizing that soil. And my job is to point out to my audience, here's who's planting the seeds and fertilizing that soil. And you may not want to hear that. You may not agree because you have other priorities. And you might say, well, I guess, on immigration or taxes or abortion or whatever it's worthwhile.
Yep.
That's not what I'm here for. I'm here to say my number one priority is these public lands. And that's it. And I'm here to give you the facts. I'm here to meet with people like you and others to give a lay of the landscape. And if after all that you still decide, well, hell with it, I guess we don't have public lands, well, okay, that's your decision, but I'm not on that ship.
Yep.
I'm going down with the ship. If that ship's going down, I'm going down with it.
Yeah.
But I'm not here to see it go down.
Absolutely.
I can't separate my experience of living in America from public lands.
Right.
If it weren't for public lands, you and I wouldn't be having a conversation.
I'd be a completely different person.
Yeah. When my parents divorced when I was 10, I'm the oldest of three. My mom's trying to raise us. My dad had to move away for work. And that's right when I was thinking, I'm going to get to be a hunter. That's what I wanted to do my whole life. And here, my whole dream of that would have been shattered and lost if not for the fact I could leave school, walk down to our trailer house, grab my 410, and walk a half mile to public land and hunt grouse.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great that people can, like, you know, people with means can go out and hunt some crazy big elk on a trophy property. I have no problem with that. Mm-hmm. But that is not the public land experience that is so central to my life and so many of the people that I know and respect. Yeah. I mean, that public access to public land it makes a difference in the character of people of all political stripes, especially across the West.
Yeah, yeah, and I know people think that I dwell on it too much. I yell fire when there's no fire. There's always some level of flame and embers on this issue. And there are people who have ideological beliefs supported by whatever their life experience is that want to see that become a raging fire.
Right.
And we no longer have these lands.
And we only need to lose once.
Right.
To have that
and
change.
That's the important part. And I was talking to one of my staff people this morning, and we're going through these notes of what are the big issues. And one of them is just that. This is not a return back to how it was if it happens. I've never seen a subdivision get converted back to wild land. I've never seen shopping malls get put back to wetland. And so your point of if we lose once, we've lost forever is absolutely true.
Yeah.
And so with all this and seeing what's going on here and just the tenor and change from when I was here last year and when I was here 5 or 6 years ago, things just feel, maybe I'm wrong, I've only been here for 3 days, but things just feel a little different right now.
Yeah, people are very unsettled. The world of the possible is different. You know, things that people accepted as just part of the American experience are being called into question right now. Yeah. Who our friends are and who our enemies are is being scrambled. So this is just a time that is a lot more unsettled than in the past. Yeah. And I think that should give us all a pause when I don't think we can just assume that things are going to be fine, they're going to be the way they were. This is a time to stand up and say, I don't care where you are on the political spectrum, this is central to who we are as Americans, and we're going to fight for it.